Hey Keisha, how are you doing?
I'm okay.
You okay? Well, I know that we've been meeting for a few sessions now to discuss some of the things that's been happening in your life. And I just kind of wanted to go through the agenda for today, if that's okay. Is that alright?
Yeah.
So, I thought we would kind of discuss some of the stuck points and some of those really strong emotions that you've been feeling that we've talked a little bit about and kind of dig a little bit deeper. I thought it would also be important to address some of the emotions and the thoughts behind those things and talk about how they go through and morph into words and actions that start impacting the way that you've been acting in the world and what's been happening in your life. And then we're going to discuss a little bit of that impact statement we talked about before that we wrote out last time about the series of events that occurred. So, just kind of starting out our session today, I wanted to touch base on, first and foremost, PTSD and some of those feelings you've been feeling. We talked about detachment, we talked about some of the triggers and how your body and your mind reacts to things that have happened to you to make you maybe feel a little bit unsafe. How have you been doing with some of those symptoms? How have you been feeling with all of that?
Still pretty unsafe. I don't like to stay home by myself, and I like when it gets dark. I feel numb a lot of the time, so I just don't talk to people or go out and do the normal things that I did because I don't really feel any of my emotions anymore.
Yeah. Now, when we, last session, we had that written statement that we wrote out, and we talked about how maybe writing that out would help you with some of those feelings about you're feeling at night and feeling detached and feeling sad and not really being able to interact with people like you used to. Do you feel like after writing that statement out, was there any difference? What are some things that maybe came up for you?
I don't know that it made a difference. It made me like relive a lot of it and like feel all of those things again. And some of the things I didn't realize that I was feeling. So, and then I just had to like write it out and realize that I'm actually doing these things. So I don't know that it helped. I think it made it worse because it was real and I was actually doing them. So I don't know if it actually did anything for me.
Okay. When you say it made it worse, what do you mean by that? What made it worse? Well, how did you act when you feel like those things were getting worse, those feelings were happening?
Because I wrote them down and made them real and like made them feel them again. I felt worse that I was feeling those things, and I felt stupid that I was feeling those things, and that it was still my fault and still guilty from all of that. So I just felt heavier or worse than what I was feeling the first time.
Yeah. So when I was looking through your written statement, which I'm really thankful that you shared that with me, I saw things in there about feeling like you had some pretty, I would venture to say, maybe extreme statements. You said some things like, you don't trust anybody anymore. I know that you're married, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there were some things with your husband that you couldn't do anymore. What are some of those really strong, maybe even extreme feelings that you've been believing or thinking about since writing out that statement?
That all men are terrible. I don't trust any of them. I just don't trust anybody because you don't really know people. Anybody could hurt you at any time, could lie to you about anything. So if I don't trust anybody or feel safe with anybody, why engage with anybody? I'll just sit by myself. It's safer that way.
Okay. I think it's safer that way. So what are some things that might be evidence to that being true? What's some evidence that all men in the world are horrible and that you can't trust people? What's some evidence behind that, you think?
The things that happened to me.
So that night, what happened in your apartment? Do you think, can you maybe elaborate on what's some evidence about something that's making that statement not true? Is there something that could maybe challenge that statement? Is there anything you can think of that might be some evidence that would challenge that?
Not right now, because I don't think I've experienced it yet since the night in my apartment anyways.
Would it be okay if I maybe challenged you a little bit with some of that?
I guess.
What if you thought about your husband, right? Has he been a good person in your life?
Mm-hmm.
Is he a man?
Yes.
So do you think that maybe he could provide some evidence for that?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Probably should.
Probably should.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've discussed in the past that he's had a lot of, he's been really supportive and he's been a really positive person in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so what are some truths about him that would maybe change some of this evidence for you?
Well, he's never actually hurt me. He was always supportive and still is super supportive. Is always very honest with me, even when I don't really want to hear whatever it is. Like, he's still honest with me. I've never really felt unsafe with him until recently. He works third shift, and that never bothered me before, but now it does. But I guess those could be some things.
Those could be some truths. What would be the benefit of believing some of those truths about your husband being a good man, and maybe, you know, that maybe suggests that not every man is horrible, right? So what would be some benefits of believing that?
I might feel safer by myself. That I would have somebody to talk to and trust, I guess, with some things. Hopefully most things. But and someone who actually like listens to what I talk about, things that hurt me or scare me or anything. Like, at least somebody is not out to get me like I feel like the rest of the world is.
Yeah.
So.
What would be some things that would be negative about believing the other truth? Like believing that all men are horrible. What would be some of the things that you're like, what would that lead to, believing that?
Less people in my life. Less, like, friends, I guess. Even if they're friends of friends, like, I wouldn't have them in my life. I wouldn't engage with other people. Like, I wouldn't even want to go to the grocery store because, well, men are at the grocery store. And, you know, they're everywhere because, well, they're people. So not still thinking they're horrible people would probably not benefit me in any way, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Well, as we're just wrapping up today, I want to encourage you to let yourself sit with those feelings. And I think it's very natural for things that have happened in your life to feel fear and feel confused. But try to think about what we talked about today with truth and remembering the real truth, interacting with your husband in positive ways. And if it's okay, I'm going to give you some homework. And some of these worksheets will just kind of go through gauging and scaling some of these feelings that you've been having. And then next session we can come back and discuss some of those beliefs and maybe be able to further work through some of those feelings. Does that sound okay? Do you have any questions for me before we end today?
No.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you, Keisha.
Thanks.